All right, what's up, guys? I'm my name's Mitchell Honest, and I worked on the Fun Events project um, promo video. So basically, how this project got started was I basically asked my dad if we could do a promo video for his business, who basically rents out bounce houses and other inflatables and party supplies and stuff like that to people who want to throw parties. But we basically went to the store, and we also went to a local, or one of my dad's associates' house, or his parents' house, and he let us shoot a bunch of inflatables there. And what's really cool is there were a bunch of kids that volunteered to come and actually, like offer to be in the video and be like actors and participants in the video. So that's also very cool because we got to work with like people who were actors, I guess. So people who worked on this project with me: Nathan Vanderbrecht, Ryan Gilo, and Shivani Kulkarni. Uh, Ryan Gilo wrote the script with me and also helped on the storyboard. He was also supervisor of the shot list, and I guess producer for the on-set producer for day 2, where we filmed at the house. Shivani was on-set producer for day 1 and also helped with the storyboard. Nathan worked on Photoshop, also was on set both days and helped film, and made all the background graphics and everything else like that in Photoshop. And then also, there's me, of course, and I did primarily all of the work that needed to be done in Premiere to get the full sequence set together. And I also, wrote the shot list. So I was basically the director of the entire thing, and project manager. And also I worked in After Effects and made all the animations that you saw with the graphics that Nathan designed in Photoshop. So I made sure that the titles would all be animated, and then I imported them into Premiere and finalized the entire thing for rendering. And so that was my job. So basically, this video is going to explain what happened, what we shot, and like how, and some tricks that we did in Premiere to basically make the entire thing a success. Okay. So now we're in Premiere. So this is the scene that we have. Everything in here. I'm not gonna play it. I'll probably play all the preview stuff in sort of when I edit this together. But here is the sequence as we laid it out, and I laid it out in a particular way. So what we did was I had Nathan work on all of the backgrounds and booth titles, because that's the major component of the logo and kind of the brand that we have. We have sort of a booth design with like red and white stripes that you normally find at like a carnival. So I took that design and I had him make a background and plates that matched the logo coloring and everything else like that, so we could create a brand for the end title screen. So that's what that was a major component, and these were all made in Photoshop. Now in the first beginning, what I did was I told the our kid actors to basically have a very terrible, bored look on their face, and I applied color correction to make the scenes look very dark or desolate. They're a little bit dark, you can't really tell, but it's an empty backyard, so it's supposed to look boring, and that kind of looks like a desert. I wanted to make the the sun look very hot and just barren landscape. And then Fun Events, the background, that's just a bunch of cropping that I did to animate that title moving forward in Premiere. So some of the footage was shaky during the thing. That was because our Fig Rig did not support any of the DSLRs that we were carrying, which are pretty big, bulky cameras. So instead, what we did was I used a stabilizer in Premiere to stabilize the footage and make sure it was straight, like in the final shot. So if you want to see what it's like without it, it's pretty bad. Let me show it to you. So we will deactivate the warp stabilizer, and this is what it looks like without stabilization, which is terrible. It's just shaking. It's like there's an earthquake. So when we add the stabilizer in, it looks much clearer, and the animations are, it's like it literally was put on a crane moving. So we try to do it with every single piece of footage we can. Problem is, there's a lot of cropping that goes into that, and it didn't work well with every shot. Like for this one, I could have stabilized that a bit more, but it would have cropped their faces out. So I just left the shake in because it wasn't noticeable. And that's part of the reason why I didn't do most of them. I didn't have this one stabilized either. I actually cropped it out to make sure that the shaking went down and made sure it was just a quick sort of scene, and made sure that we, flipped to different shots quickly so that you don't have enough time to analyze the scene and notice, wait a second, what's going on? The things are all shaky. That's why. Another thing we tried to do is we tried to make sure sound was key. So what I did was I went to Ryan and took Ryan and two other people, and we had them all speak in the green screen room, and we did voiceovers for the commercial in there because it was quiet and everything else like that. Not like it is now. You probably hear everyone talking, but that's basically what we did for that part. Because after the Avid thing, all the interviews were terrible because we were using the mics on the cameras themselves, and I had to audio correct all of them, and they ended up sounding terrible. So I wanted to make sure that the audio was clear, the sound of the music was low enough to the point where you could just hear Ryan's voice completely, even if you had the volume turned down. So I used RGB curves and brightness and contrast to sort of bring out the balloon's color a little bit more, and made these background scenes look a little bit more, these stood out. So what I did was, here's what the original shot looked like before we had brightness and contrast, and then we had RGB curves. This was probably the best shot I color corrected of the whole bunch, but I basically did the same thing. I'm not going to show you cut by cut comparison of everything, but you basically get it, the idea. So what we did was, for this, they're all separate sentences, so they might sound like, oh, they're just reading something and then stopping, and then there's this gigantic pause, or it sounds really out of place, but it actually, when we edited it together, it didn't sound that way at all, and it was very quick. So I definitely am going to write that down, and if you're doing any voiceovers, don't have them read the entire script through all the way, because if they do that, they're going to rush in some point in the middle, and then you got to do a whole nother take. The less you have for your voice actor to read when you're recording, the better, because then you don't have to record as many takes, and they can get a couple of nice takes in there for you have to work with, and then you can combine that into the whole big thing. Just make sure you have your script pre-written well, and that it all flows nicely, so that you have multiple takes to work with, and you can make it flow. So that's it. That's the documentary. Bye.